Without ions, you wouldn't be able to think or move at all. Today, we are breaking down the electrochemical potential, the tiny energy difference that powers your muscles and your mind. By the end of this video, you'll understand the science behind every thought you've ever had and every step you've ever taken. Your body is made up of billions of cells, and within every cell there is a delicate electrical balance. This balance is crucial for your muscles to contract and your brain to function. But how does it physically work? To start, let's talk about muscle contractions. When you want to move a muscle, your brain sends a signal to the muscle cells. This signal is essentially an electrical impulse that travels down the length of the muscle cell. But what triggers this impulse? The answer lies in the world of ions. Ions are tiny charged particles that flow in and out of our cells, creating an electrical potential difference across the cell membrane. Like any molecule, they tend to spread where there is less of them. Take the sugar, for example. If you drop some in a glass full of milk, you just need to wait until the sugar dissolves completely, making each sip of milk taste the same. I know you can stir with a spoon, but please humor me for a second. So sugar spreads where there is less of what we call chemical potential. What is this thing? Just like balloons squeeze in a room, they store energy and then they release it, spreading away from each other as much as possible. Somebody called this thing entropy. But here's the fascinating part. When you have ions squeezed to one side, you don't just create a chemical imbalance, you also generate an electrical imbalance. The difference of charges generate an electric field that makes move every charge that is inside of it. And by moving, some charges release energy, while others consume it. And here's the cool thing, if you divide the energy of each charge by the charges themselves, you get the same number. And this number tells us how much energy each charge can potentially release or consume in an electric field. That's why it's called electric potential or voltage. So whenever you have gradients of ions, you have a chemical potential difference and an electric potential difference. Scientists decided that this sentence was way too long, so they fused the two potentials into one, the electrochemical potential. And this thing is insanely important. Every thought, every emotion, every idea, every breath, every heartbeat you've ever had, they all rely on it. So let's unravel how it really works. To contract, muscle cells rely on ion gradients. In each muscle cells, outside is full of sodium, while inside is full of potassium. For every 3 sodiums outside, there are 2 potassiums inside. So inside the cell is more negative or less positive. This creates an electrochemical potential difference. So the muscle at rest is polarized. Inside negative, outside positive. That's stored energy. Just like a spring, but loaded with ion gradients. And when the muscle cells get a signal, sodium channels open. Because of the lower concentration inside and the negative charge inside, sodium rushes in. The voltage changes and it triggers the next spot to do the same. And that chain reaction creates an electrical impulse that triggers the release of calcium, which physically pulls the muscle's filament together. And that's what triggers a contraction. So now the muscle cell is depolarized. 2 potassiums rush out of the cell, and the cell is now repolarized. After that, the cell uses the famous ATP to push 3 sodiums out and 2 potassiums in. Then calcium is pumped back into storage, and the muscles relaxes. But here's the tricky part. Now you go for a run, and you sweat. You lose sodium, potassium, and other ions through your sweat. That flattens the gradient. And when the ion gradients collapse, the electrochemical potential collapses too. And without that potential, the muscle cannot reset its charge. So some part of the muscle stayed slightly depolarized. Not fully on, but not fully off either. And that's a dangerous territory. In that half-charged state, the sodium channels become jumpy, and the nerves fire when they shouldn't. And suddenly, a whole bundle of muscle fibers contracts all at once. But since the gradients are too flat, the cell doesn't have energy to pump everything back, to shut the contraction down, so the muscle locks up. That's how you get a cramp, a contraction that cannot end because the electrochemical potential is not strong enough to reset the cell. Even if you're still plenty of energy, like ATP, your cells cannot use it because the electrochemical push is gone. That's why electrolytes matter. You're not just replacing salt, you're recharging the electric plus chemical gradient that powers every movement. But here's the scary part. The same electrochemical potential that makes your muscle contract is the same one that makes your neurons fire. And when electrolytes go out of balance, neurons don't just get weak, they can become uncontrollable because they also live on gradients. Sodium outside, potassium inside. Same pump, same spring, loaded and ready. When a neuron wants to talk, it opens its sodium channels. Sodium rushes in and the voltage flips. And that flip travels like a wave of electricity. Then potassium flows out and the pump resets the gradients. And the neurons are ready for the next thought. But if the gradients collapse from dehydration, too little sodium, too little potassium, the neuron loses its normal resting voltage. Some neurons go silent, others do the opposite. They become hypersensitive. They start to fire when they shouldn't, sending chaotic signals. Whole groups triggering each other like a falling dominoes. And if enough neurons fire at the same time, that's not just a twitch, that's a seizure. The electrochemical potential spiraling out of control. So the thing that moves your muscles, the same thing that fires your neurons, and that keeps your heart beating, it all comes down to one engine, ion gradients, the electrochemical potential. So your muscles move because of voltage. You think because of voltage. Your entire life depends on voltage. But why does voltage behave the way it does? Why do charges fall into place exactly like objects fall to the earth? Because there is a mind-blowing connection between gravity and voltage. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.